In March, a new wave of mass persecution and detention began in Belarus. The first to be searched and arrested by the local Committee of State Security were those who had been persecuted for last 3 years under administrative and political articles. This was reported by the Human Rights Center Vyasna. According to the organization, the human rights situation in the country is deteriorating every day.
Today there are 5, 6, 7,000 political prisoners in jails, but so far there is no way to identify all these people. The regime is starting and quite actively using punitive psychiatry. This is when people are locked up in psychiatric hospitals. Psychotropics are used against them to remove very important witnesses to murderous crime.
12 years in prison on charges of undermining national security and inciting hatred. Such a sentence was handed down by the court to Marina Zolotova, editor-in-chief of the country's independent news website Tut.by, and Lyudmila Chekina, general director of the website. The Belarusian court sentenced Alicebilatsky, the main Belarusian human rights activist and one of the 2022 Nobel Peace Prize laureate, to 10 years in prison. And this is only a small part of high-profile criminal prosecutions in Belarus, Bilatsky said about political repressions in the country back in 2021.
This practice is actively used by the Belarusian security forces after detaining, beating and intimidating public activists of various levels in Minsk, in the regions or even little-known ones. They are forced to testify, to confess to something they did not do.
Since the beginning of Russia's full-scale war against Ukraine, more than 1,500 Belarusians have been detained for their anti-war position. Of these, 56 people were convicted in criminal cases for a term of 1 to 23 years, human rights activists of Vyasna report.
The machine, of course, works. This terror is working to its fullest. Of course, I don't know what was there in the 1930s. Was it less or more than now? But the analogies are very direct, and we all feel that we have returned to 1937, when relatives massively write denunciations against each other to the KGB. We have situations where mothers write to their children, children to their parents.
In Belarus, more than 3,000 information resources have been recognized as extremist. Those who comment on their publications on social networks are subject to criminal persecution. But increased repression is a sign of the regime's fear, experts say.
It also shows how the authorities are not confident in themselves. Aggressive purges are what the authorities are doing against those who work in various state organizations and government bodies. For example, they are fired from work or reprimanded or otherwise dealt with, even with those people who in 2020 signed for some alternative candidates. Tatiana Chulitskaya, research fellow at the University Vytautas the Great, Lithuania, in an interview with Deutsche Welle.
According to Tatiana Chulitskaya, despite the arrests and emigration from Belarus, hundreds of thousands of people remained in the country who are still against the Lukashenko regime. In her opinion, their arrests and detentions will continue, but the resistance also will continue. Reported by Roman Smoler, Natalia Husak, UATV News.